out of the current top 15 ranked UFC light heavyweights can defeat a prime Jon Jones? We will be using the following categories. Destroys Jon. So I've used Tom Aspinall as a good example. I know he's not a light heavyweight, but I just thought I'd include it, Jon Jones fans. Tom Aspinall would destroy prime Jon Jones, or any version of Jon Jones in my opinion, and it wouldn't be close. Beats Jon means I think they would beat Jon Jones. I would wager their chances of beating Jon Jones greater than Jones's chances of beating them, but it would still be fairly close or competitive. High chance means the opponent has a high chance of beating Jon Jones, but I ultimately don't see them winning. Remember, high chance means it's close to 50-50, but I'd still lean to Jon. A couple of you guys seem to get confused about that category in my other videos. You know, a high chance still means I would pick, let's say, Khabib over Conor McGregor. Let's just say, for example. Can compete means give him some trouble maybe in some areas, but ultimately it's still a very comfortable win for Jon Jones. And pray for that man means, you guessed it, pray for that man, dear God, they have absolutely no chance. So, Alonzo Manfield, pray for that man. I mean, like, could anyone genuinely sit there with a straight face, sat in front of you and say, yeah, Alonzo Manfield beats Jon Jones? No, they couldn't. And he wouldn't. So, Alonzo Manfield and pray for that man is absolutely fine. Xiaoming Yang, for now, he's going to go and can compete. I think he looks very, very good. Very powerful, explosive. Defensively, he leaves himself a bit open. But Jon Jones, even in his prime, it's hard to gauge sometimes where Jon Jones's fall off truly began, right? Because for the sake of this video, he gets past testing. Prime Jon Jones probably wasn't natural, which is why as soon as he got off the stuff, he started having close fights with Dominick Reyes and Thiago Santos. But, you know, and he couldn't finish Anthony Smith. But aside from that, Jon Jones was an elite level fighter in his prime, right? In his absolute best peak performances. But even at his best peak performances, he was fighting guys that were a lot smaller than him, that were from the older generation, like Rashad Evans or Rampage Jackson. And while they were all very, very good fighters for that generation, they probably wouldn't do well, let's say, even against a Xiaoming Yang. And I know that might sound a bit harsh because Xiaoming Yang is the new generation of fighter, so it might seem obvious to some of you, but it also might seem harsh because he hasn't really beaten anybody yet, except from Anthony Smith. But Xiaoming Yang's very good with his lateral movement. That's something prime Jon Jones massively never faced. He usually faced guys that were stood in front of him, plodding. The only guy that moved well that he fought was Lyoto Machida, and Lyoto Machida had a ton of success against Jon Jones, especially early, but Jon Jones did pull out the finish in the end. So while it's too early to say Xiaoming Yang, even if he is the new generation of fighter, has a high chance or beats Jon Jones, I certainly think there is some areas with his power, combination punching, decent leg kicks, explosivity. There is some areas I think Xiaoming Yang can give Jones some trouble in, but it's far too early to give him any high chance or beats Jon. Definitely wouldn't destroy Jon. Can compete for me is fair. Jamal Hill. Pray for that man. Hill's long, not as long as Jon, which is insane. Jon Jones, 6'4", 84.5-inch reach. It could be even more, but that's what I found off Google. I'm pretty sure it's correct too, memorising his tail of the tapes. Very long, Jamal Hill. Too clunky. He's not very... I don't want to say Jamal Hill isn't very good because he was a UFC world champion. He's very good, but he's not on the level of a Jon Jones. He's not, I would argue, a better fighter than Xiaoming Yang. And I know that might sound too soon, but I already think Xiaoming Yang has shown a lot of ability and a lot of skill compared to, let's say, Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill, for me, is... During his title reign, which wasn't very long, but after he beat Glover Teixeira, I think he became so overrated. And Joe Rogan did a very, very good job at propping up Jamal Hill to be something that he isn't. An elite level counter striker. Somebody that can absolutely knock Alex Pereira out on the feet. And when they fought, I predicted Jamal Hill to get knocked out by Pereira in the first round. And he did. He got knocked out by Pereira in the first round. And for me, I always felt that outcome was really obvious. Like, I never believed Hill was on someone like Pereira's level. And if he didn't try to take Pereira down, he'd be in trouble. Hill has shown he doesn't have the best fight IQ, doesn't have the best defense. His movement is very clunky. He can move quickly, but he often leaves himself off balance. He can cross his feet. He can make mistakes. He's never going to reset against Jon Jones because anytime he tries to throw a 1-2, move off on an angle clunkily, and he tries to reset and get his legs back underneath him, Jon's going to come in with the side kick to the knee. He's going to attack with the oblique kicks. He's going to try to take Jamal Hill down. And that's another thing people don't realise about a prime Jon Jones. Jon Jones is arguably the greatest grappler this sport's ever seen. If you look at grapplers that have proven themselves against other elite level grapplers, Glover Teixeira, great wrestlers like Chael Sonnen or Rashad Evans, or even an Olympian level wrestler in Daniel Cormier, and other good wrestlers like Alexander Gustafsson, Jon Jones has got, or Ovin St. Preux, Jon Jones has got elite level wrestling that is too much for even a Zhang Min Yang or a Jamal Hill. Did I put Zhang Min Yang too high? He's beat Anthony Smith. Like, is it a bit too soon? I just think if you look at how Zhang Min Yang fights, he can give Jones some trouble. Not high chance, but some trouble. But Jamal Hill, I think, would get destroyed. It's definitely pray for that man for me against a prime Jon. Dominick Reyes. Right. No, we're not going to make any Reyes got robbed jokes against Jon Jones. Don't worry, Jones fans. But, you know, this is the only man to successfully defeat Jon Jones. No, in all seriousness. Right. Can compete. Here's why Dominick Reyes gave Jon Jones some trouble. Because, like Zhang Min Yang I mentioned, Dominick Reyes had the movement Jon Jones had never faced before. In southpaw, moving in and out, lateral movement, on point. Great boxing, great 1-2s, great combination punching. Strong and physical with his takedown defence. Now, Jon Jones, before kind of USADA came around, or kind of when testing wasn't as stringent, he was a lot faster with his takedown entries and a lot more explosive with his shots. So the Reyes that fought Jon Jones and arguably beat Jon Jones was also a better version of Dominick Reyes too. So we can't overlook that. But Dominick Reyes just had a style that Jon Jones would massively struggle against. Good feints, in and out movement. Jones was never the hardest hitter, which against Dominick Reyes now, even though he's 35 and less durable, which is why he's not going to go up here. If it was the Dominick Reyes that just fought Jon Jones, or maybe even the one that fought Jan Blachowicz before he got KO'd, he could still be up here. Just stylistically, Dominick Reyes had a horrible style for Jon Jones to deal with. And Jon still got the job done. It was a very close fight. For me, it wasn't a robbery. And I think there is some arguments Jon got it done. There's maybe a better argument Reyes got the job done. And it wasn't against an absolute prime Jon Jones, in my opinion. Peak performance Jon Jones. But it was probably against the best natural version of Jon Jones, is how I would view that fight. So Dominick Reyes always had a hard style for Jon Jones, but he's less durable now. He's a bit slower now. He's 35 years old. His kind of style's been kind of figured out by this point. And again, it's that less durable. He's starting to pick it up again in his career, though, which is insane. If Dominick Reyes can go on another title run, that would be insane. He's always had the talent to do it, but unfortunately, I think that was his moment. If it was going to be his moment, it would have been against Jon. But ultimately, man, he just does have a style. Even this version of Reyes now, against a prime Jones, he just does have that style to give Jon Jones a lot of trouble. But ultimately, yeah, just not as good of a version of his old self, Dominick Reyes now. So can compete, for me, is absolutely fine. Alexander Rakic can compete. Yeah, he can. Again, decent combination. Decent 1-2s. Very easily backed up. He's over technical, in my opinion, to where he can point fight at times. You can't point fight against Jon Jones. You just can't. You're not going to beat him going tit for tat because he'll outpoint fight you. He'll outscore you with oblique kicks, side kicks to the body. He'll outscore you with these kinds of things. And if you're letting him take the front foot, you're ultimately going to be fighting at his pace. And not just that, as strong as Rakic is and as physical as Rakic is, Jones does have better wrestling than Rakic. And I do believe he could get Rakic down or just throw it out there to give Rakic a different look, to make Rakic even more hesitant. So I think Jon Jones wouldn't absolutely run through Rakic and finish him, but I do think he would control Rakic to a decision or maybe a late TKO. Rakic just moments where he lands, moments where he bursts in with a combination, moments where he stuffs a Jones takedown, but ultimately he's kind of always defensive, stood in front of Jon Jones and kind of getting picked apart. But Rakic does have decent leg kicks, and that is something that Jon Jones has never been good at dealing with. Jon Jones, actually, as good as his offensive tactics are to target your knees and target your calf, Jones never did have the best leg kicking defense, and he always did have thin legs. So maybe that's something Rakic can score with. Thiago Santos certainly did in moments. But yeah, I honestly think Jon Jones would comfortably beat Alexander Rakic. Bogdan Guskov, again, can compete in certain areas, but it's another thing with Bogdan Guskov. He's going to be stood in front of Jon Jones a lot. He's going to be defensive a lot. He might try and lead the dance sometimes. He might try and, at first, put Jon Jones on the back foot. But he hasn't shown that he has that level of grappling Jon Jones had, or even a high level of grappling. We need to see that more from him. He's also not the fastest guy in the world, which I do think is important. If you are going to beat a Jon Jones, a very good version of Jon Jones, a prime version of Jon Jones, you do need a bit of speed, a bit more lateral movement. If you kind of stood in front of him where he can post on you, he can reach out with his arms extended and grab your lead hand, poke you with a jab or side kick to the knee, oblique kick, work a double leg takedown because you kind of stood in front of him. Look at Rampage Jackson, look at Rashad Evans, look at anybody that stood in front of Jon Jones. He kind of just finds it so easy to dictate the pace of the fight and control you there. Or even if you are coming forward on him with volume, like Daniel Cormier, and you are really trying to push Jon Jones back, and you even are doing it in certain moments, he's still got such a long reach. He's still so good with his weapons. And if, especially, you start getting him pedaled back, and now you're entering into that real close distance, so you get past his reach, up close, Jon will look for collar ties, he'll look for knees to the body. He has better dirty boxing than Bogdan Guskov, so I could see him giving Jon some issues, right? I could see him trying to take the centre of the octagon off Jon, but he ain't winning that fight. But he does have a lot of power, but Jon Jones also had a great chin, so that kind of negates itself a little bit. Azamat Murzakanov is going to go into top end of can compete. He absolutely, right, can compete with Jon Jones, but there is certain things Azamat does that I think he would massively struggle with Jon Jones, and one of the biggest things is he's 5'10", and he's nowhere near as long as Jon. He's struggling. He's struggling. He's also not got the best leg kicks in the world. They're not bad. His lead southpaw low calf kick's not bad, but again, he's going to struggle finding that kind of range with Jon before Jon can time that and come through with a side kick to the body. So that's going to be tough for Azamat to time. And also, Azamat, like I mentioned with Zhang Mingyang and Dominick Reyes, does kind of have that style where he's moving on the front foot, it's feinting in and out, a lot of level changes. He also has a very good wrestling background. So unlike Rakic, unlike Guskov, Dominick Reyes is a bit different, and so is Zhang Mingyang. But unlike those guys, he has actually got a very high level of grappling. And it's going to be hard for Jon Jones to get under him and get a takedown on him. And Azamat is very powerful. He has a very good left overhand. But he's really good at, you kind of see it with Alexander Usyk in boxing. I'm not saying Azamat has the level of boxing that Alexander Usyk has, but you'll kind of see with Azamat is he'll go for these level changes, jab to the bodies, and he's got really intelligent feints, and he's really light on his feet, but he can kind of go from standing in front of you to just adjusting that angle so you miss your offensive attacks. And I think Jon Jones would struggle to settle into a fight with Azamat Murzakanov. But at the end of the day, I don't put him in high chance, and I wouldn't put him in Beach Jon. No way. Not yet. He's undefeated, he's powerful, he's fast, he's very well-rounded, Azamat, and I could see him getting to the top of that division if he stops failing for certain supplements. All right, people. You know, that's twice now, Azamat. Naughty boy. But I do believe he has a striking style. Again, something that Prime Jon Jones never really faced, which is good offensive lateral movement, in and out, aggressive feints, working and timing shots well off of those feints. Whereas Jon Jones was much better in his prime teeing off against shorter, stockier, brawler, wrestler type fighters. So Murzakanov could give Jon Jones a lot of trouble, in my opinion. Almost put him in high chance. I know I'm going to get cooked in the comments. I know Jon Jones fans are going to cook me in the comments. But if you actually watch the sport, prime Jon Jones wasn't absolutely unbeatable. And in the new generation, right, this is like 4 or 5 generations later, there is guys like Murzakanov, there is guys like Rakic, there is guys like Guskov, and the guys like Yang that can give Jon Jones trouble, right? He still beats these guys comfortably, especially Murzakanov, because he does leave his head. He does like slip inside and outside. He might fall into a lead high kick, or he might fall into a question mark kick, or he might fall into the spinning back kick that prime Jon Jones hadn't developed yet, because he developed it at 36. But regardless, Jon Jones' knees up the middle when Murzakanov finally does close the distance are going to be key. Jon Jones can come in with different entries and different looks. It all depends how quickly Jones slows the pace of the fight down to his pace. How quickly can he do that? Because if he can do it quickly, he'll settle into the fight quickly. I could see Azamat taking the first round off Jon, right? I could see him stuffing some of Jones's takedowns. He's absolutely not taking Jon Jones down. That's not going to happen. If anybody's going to take anybody down, it'll be Jon taking Azamat down. And again, Azamat isn't as proven, right? So he's not going to go in high chance. This isn't me being disrespectful. I'm just looking at it stylistically. He's very good with his movement, very aggressive. He can capitalise on feints, and he's very well-rounded. That would give Jon some trouble, but Jon would still win comfortably. Look at the meaning of can compete. Chill out. Because I know some Jones Glazers like to put him in. They would put him all of these in prayer for that man. That ain't how it works. It's not going to fly with me. No, that's just not going to happen. Volkan Ozdemir, though, is going to go in prayer for that man. Really. Decent kickboxer. One shot at a time. Jon Jones could probably easily take him down and submit him, or get a ground and pound TKO with his elbows. I could absolutely see Volkan Ozdemir getting sliced open by Jones's elbows. Yeah, Ozdemir gets destroyed. Johnny Walker. Right, if you know, you know. If you know, you know with this one. Johnny Walker. Do you guys remember the days of Johnny Walker? Before Reyes came along, people believed Johnny Walker was a stylistic nightmare against Jon Jones, to the point where people would probably, around Johnny Walker's come up, have put him in destroys Jon. No word of a lie, that is genuinely true. If you're new to this sport, this was a genuine thing that happened. Obviously, now, it's going to go in prayer for that man. A few really bad knockouts later, showing his fight IQ. He is very athletic, and actually, I could see maybe early in the first round, a couple of flying knee attempts, maybe lands 1 or 2 big shots on Jon. Jon will probably take Walker down. Walker will build up to his feet because he is very strong and athletic. But Jon will control Walker in the clinch, and ultimately, he'll have his way with Johnny Walker. There's just a level of fight IQ that Johnny Walker doesn't have compared to Jon Jones. And I do know why. Like, I actually do get, when Johnny Walker was on his come-up, why people thought Walker would be a hard fight for Jon Jones, because he's long, he's powerful, he's athletic. It'd be hard for Jon Jones to keep him down. He's got a lot of power. But even if you look at the athletic stuff and you might think, no, Walker might actually be able to give Jon Jones a difficult time. There's a level of IQ that Jon Jones has that Johnny Walker does not have at all. At all. And I definitely think Jones might like flush head kick Johnny Walker unconscious. Or he might just take him down and finish him there. You know what I'm trying to say? Or Johnny Walker would go into this fight and go for a somersault into a double leg on Jon Jones and just fall into a guillotine. I don't know, but it'll be something crazy. Something silly. But man, those days were crazy when people used to believe that. Nikita Krylov. Yeah, again, pray for that man. Same kind of reasons as Volkan Ozdemir. Fight IQ, wrestling. Striking's too basic. He does have decent counter-punching, Nikita Krylov, but yeah, not enough to beat a prime Jon Jones, nowhere near. Jan Blachowicz. Prime Jan Blachowicz would go here, right? Jan Blachowicz that just beat Dominick Reyes would go there. Jan Blachowicz now, not as fast, he's 41, I do believe now. A couple of his last decisions, like the Ulberg one, I think should have gone his way. But the thing with Jan Blachowicz and why Jan Blachowicz is going to go down into can compete is Jan Blachowicz lets fights get way too close, especially at this stage in his career, right? I thought he beat Carlos Ulberg, but he needs to understand, you're 40 years old. You can't and you are not going to get decisions against young guys like Carlos Ulberg. You're just not. You've got to dominate them. If you're going to go to the scorecards, you've got to knock them out. You've got to be more decisive. And Jan is not decisive enough, and he never has been. It's been a big problem throughout his career. Unless he knocks you out with his Polish power, which he hasn't done in a while, right? We haven't seen that in a while. He does have a very good ability to stay defensive with his lead leg. Jon is going to struggle landing the side kicks and the oblique kicks. Jon is going to struggle opening up Jan Blachowicz' guard. And Jan Blachowicz, while I see him having some moments against a prime Jon, Jan is too stationary, right? Too plodding. And Jon would probably just outpoint Jan comfortably. Jan would have a few moments. It's going to be hard for Jon to break the guard, hard for Jon to land anything too flush. But ultimately, Jon Jones will control Jan Blachowicz to a very steady decision win, in my opinion. Like, especially Jan now. Prime Jan might go here because he was more explosive, he had better lateral movement, and he just had that bit more of aggression. But even in his prime, he'd let guys make it way too close with him, right? He'd let guys exchange with him. He'd let guys go 50-50 with him. But he used to have that crushing power that you couldn't mess with. Now, I wouldn't say that same kind of level of power and that same kind of level of timing is there. But he's such a good defensive fighter still, Jan Blachowicz. It's hard to land leg kicks on him. It's hard to land 1-2s on him. Defensively, Jan's very, very underrated. And I think on that kind of department, he can keep Jon Jones guessing. But he'd still lose very, very comfortably. Khalil Rountree. Right. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Khalil Rountree. I know you don't want to hear it. I know what you're all going to say, right? I know what you're all going to say, and I know why you're all going to cook me. This is a guy, I know you think, struggled against Dustin Jacoby and struggled against Anthony Smith. Against Jamal Hill, Khalil Rountree, for me, hit another level, right? Against Alex Pereira, he was too wasteful. He did leave his head on centre line. He would not beat a prime Jon Jones. Actually, he's going to go and can compete because I know I'm going to get cooked. I'm borderlining him on high chance. Khalil Rountree has good lateral movement, very good defence with his leg kicks, very good leg kicks of his own, quick, nimble southpaw, powerful, great combination punching. Khalil Rountree has a lot of skills that could give a prime Jon Jones a lot of trouble. Does he have a high chance? I want to put him in high chance because I know he has a skill set to give Jon Jones a really hard fight. Especially now he's more relaxed and he's not as loading up with his shots and tensing his shoulders up and then swinging away like he did with Alex Pereira. He seems more composed now. He really hit another level against Jamal Hill for me. But Jon is a lot longer than Khalil. Jon has better fight IQ than Khalil. He has more avenues to victory. The wrestling could be a problem if Jon can get Khalil stood in front of him momentarily. But again, it's like the same reasons as Jan, but kind of different because he's a much better mover than Jan and he's a lot younger and a lot faster. Jon is going to massively struggle to open Khalil up defensively. If Jon's pressuring Khalil back, trying to throw the side kicks, trying to gauge distance, it's going to be hard for Jon to land too much clean on Khalil, especially early. But it's when Khalil comes forward, can Jon time a spinning elbow? Can he time a short elbow? Can he time a double leg? Because Khalil will burst forward in combination bursts. That's how Khalil fights. Relax, measure, bang. Quick combination. That's how Khalil fights. Fights in bursts, in moments. That could give Jon Jones a really hard fight, in my opinion. But I was going to put him in high chance, but I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening at all. But I just don't see it being a 50-50 fight. I see it being more like a 60-40 fight where Jon still fairly comfortably beats Khalil. This is prime Jon Jones we're talking about, right? And he got past testing. So, Carlos Ulberg. Actually going to go in the low end of can compete. And I know what a lot are going to say about this. Carlos Ulberg, 6'4". Whenever we saw Jon Jones against somebody that is like his height, he massively struggled with. But Carlos Ulberg doesn't have enough to beat Jon Jones. He's not a good enough mover. He doesn't have good enough timing. He's powerful, but Jon Jones again has a great chin. Unless Ulberg catches him absolutely perfectly, it's going to be hard for Ulberg to knock him out. He's very good, Ulberg, but he's too point fightery. He's too slow paced. You need to really put Jon Jones in an uncomfortable pace to really have a lot of success with him. Like, I think Khalil or Azamat, or maybe even Rakic, and maybe even Guskov could put Jon Jones in an uncomfortable pace, right? But Carlos Ulberg, as powerful as he is and as physical as he is, I do think Jon would out-grapple him. And I don't think he's shown yet that he has the fight IQ of Jon Jones. He let that Jan Blachowicz fight get far too close. If Jan Blachowicz was his age, I have no doubt Jan would have got that decision. Ulberg's not bad. I was very unimpressed with his Jan performance. He really needed to kick up another level there and he barely scraped by. So I don't think he beats Jon Jones. I think he fights at too slow a pace. And yeah, Jon Jones would beat him. Yuri Prochazka. Obviously, Yuri looked good against Hill, but still hittable, right? Yuri looked good against Hill, but people are kind of over-egging how good defensively he was against Hill. Like, still got hit a lot in that fight. But his shoulder rolling looked better. His slips look better on Hill's shots. Yuri is a very honest, humble guy, and he does improve a lot in each fight. Top end of can compete, he can give Jon Jones some trouble. Powerful, fast entries, decent grappler, aggressive off his back, too aggressive off his back. He would probably make some mistakes against Jon Jones, and I do think Jones could take him down. But I think Yuri would make a lot of mistakes off his back against Jon, far too aggressive. He wouldn't... Opening up aggressively from full guard against Jon is not a good idea, right? Attacking with submissions against Jon from these positions is not a good idea because Jon will find a better position. He'll use it against you. You need to more methodically get up, right? You need to use the fence to get up. You need to stay patient if Jon does get you down. And Yuri will try and make this fight a car crash. He fights at a pace that would make Jon uncomfortable. So Jon's not going to be able to just slow the pace of the fight down and completely outpoint strike Yuri. Yuri's going to have to look out for the high kicks, like the roundhouse kick to the head. He's going to have to look out for that, especially if Jon sets it up maybe with like a level change. Yuri drops his guard and slips into a right high kick. He's going to struggle with that kind of aspect from Jon. Like, I actually could see Yuri getting slapped by a kick from Jon. Jon's round kicks to the body could be a problem for Yuri. But Yuri can fight so erratically and he can fight in either stance, which might stop Jon from timing the oblique kicks or the side kicks to the knee. Because if Yuri's switching stances constantly, it's going to be hard for Jon to gauge with his lead leg where to plant that kick, where to time that kick. And before you know it, similar to Lyoto Machida, Yuri's coming in with a quick combination and it's just flustering Jon a bit. But Jon's a lot longer than Yuri. He's got good knees up the middle. He's excellent in the clinch. He's a better dirty boxer than Yuri. And Yuri still is very hittable. And Jon does have better fight IQ than Yuri. So I think Jon Jones would beat Yuri Prochazka. But again, Yuri and Khalil almost got into here, right? But not quite. I just couldn't see them making it 50-50. But I could see them giving him trouble, right? Alex Pereira. Argue with your wall on this one. I don't care. Don't care what anybody says. Argue with your wall on this one. Alex Pereira would get destroyed by a prime Jon Jones. Destroyed. He doesn't have the level of grappling at all that Jon Jones has. He does have a very good grappling coach. And I get he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but is he really? Very good, Alex Pereira. I love him. Styles mate fights, right? He is long. He is tall. Not as long as Jon, because I think Jon still might have like 5 inches in reach on even Pereira, which is insane. Pereira does have a very, very good kickboxing base that if Jon stays striking with Alex, can give Jon problems. Great leg kicks, a huge problem for Jon. Jon's going to massively struggle to attack Pereira's legs too. Maybe not with the oblique kicks and side kicks, but more so the calf kicks. Pereira's checks, his ability to move his leg out of the way, his timing on his left hook, his long-range punches are going to give Jon problems. His level changes and different looks could give Jon problems on the feet. But, man, I'm going to put Dominick Reyes in prayer for that man too, because I can't, with the way Dominick Reyes is right now, I just can't, right? But Dominick Reyes, I feel bad, but I'm going to put him in prayer for that man. I know Pereira is a better fighter than Zhang Mingyang. I know Pereira is a better fighter than Alexander Rakic, right? I know he would beat these guys, but that's because they're all going to strike with him. That's because they're all going to play Pereira at his game. Whereas, as much as Pereira can give Jon trouble on the feet, it's not close at all on the ground. Pereira is helpless against Jon Jones on the ground. That's what you lot need to realise. Helpless. Absolutely helpless. And Jon will take him down easily. He'll control him easily. He's decent at surviving off his back, but man, Jon Jones is methodical. He's going to come in heavy ground and pound elbows. And when he's slicing Pereira open, when he's elbowing the body, when he's attacking full mount, when he's attacking these positions, it's going to force Pereira to exert energy. He might give his back and then Jon chokes him. Jon would easily finish Pereira in the first round. Easily. And people don't like to hear that because we all love Alex. I love Alex. We all love Alex, right? He showed decent takedown defence against Ankalaev, but man, no. Jon would destroy him. I can't put Alex in can compete or high chance knowing how one-sided it is if Jon Jones gets him on the ground. It's so over. It's not even funny. Even Jon Jones now would beat Alex Pereira. And that's saying something. And probably in the first round too. That's why he wanted to fight him and not Tom Aspinall, because he knows it. There's just a level of grappling there that Pereira just doesn't have. Ankalaev. He's going to go in high chance. Nearly in beats Jon. Because this is why Jon had struggled with Ankalaev. And a lot of people might not pick up on this, because I think Ankalaev is so underrated. Very good defensively. Similar to Azamat, right? But more proven at the highest level. Good southpaw level changes. Stopping your lead hand from getting through. You're going to struggle to jab at Magomed Ankalaev. He does turn over on his calf though. So if Jon switches to southpaw and looks for a switch kick, or low calf kick, pardon me, on Ankalaev's lead leg, that is there. Ankalaev does take leg kicks. He was a lot better at defending them though against Pereira than he was, let's say, against Jan Blachowicz. So he's fixed it up a little bit. But he's still going to struggle with the side kicks to the knee. Especially if Ankalaev's looking for a jab to the body, steps in, and Jon smashes a side kick to the knee on Ankalaev's lead leg. Jon would beat Ankalaev, in my opinion. But I think Ankalaev could make this very, very close. Elite level counter puncher. Very good with his left overhand counter. Very good with his level changes. The only thing with this fight is Ankalaev's going to struggle with the fact that he, for the first time in his career, is not going to be the better grappler in there, right? Ankalaev's going to struggle with the fact that Jon Jones, if anything, is going to be the one taking him down, not the other way around. So that's going to add a new dimension to the fight on how Ankalaev pressures. But if Ankalaev's pressuring Jon back and working that way, he could have success. If Ankalaev's on the back foot, his lead leg might get targeted badly, and he could potentially end up in some scrambles with Jon, and I think he could stuff a couple of Jon's takedowns. He's going to struggle with the reach of Jon and the height of Jon. But if Jon commits, Ankalaev can time really good counters. He's a lot faster than Jones was, and he has much better power punching, counter punching, right? Jon can overextend. He's not perfect defensively, and he can get caught off by the blitzes of Ankalaev. Because Ankalaev's such a good counter puncher. He's so underrated. People really don't realise that. He's so very underrated, Magomed Ankalaev. But I wouldn't say he beats Jon. I'd still edge Jon Jones over Ankalaev. I'd still say Jon Jones would beat Ankalaev. But I think Ankalaev could make it pretty close and pretty competitive. A lot more competitive than the before mentioned guys. And that's it, guys. Look, I had Dominick Reyes can compete at some point in this video. I know Pereira being in prayer for that man below Zhang Mingyang and Carlos Ulberg and all these guys is going to annoy some of you lot, but, you know, it's just knowing that Pereira's helpless on the ground with Jon. It's just knowing that fact. I could never pick Pereira to even have a competitive fight with Jon. Not even close. So thank you all very much for watching. This is the list I've ended up with. Thank you all very much for watching. Goodbye, everybody.